He was a king whose name became synonymous with wisdom itself. A ruler so brilliant that queens and kings traveled the known world just to hear him speak. He built a temple of unimaginable splendor, a house for God on earth, and presided over a golden age of peace and prosperity. But the story of King Solomon is not just a tale of glory. It is a shocking and tragic account of how the wisest man who ever lived made a series of foolish choices that would corrupt his heart, divide his kingdom, and lead his soul to ruin. This is the story of how a brilliant beginning can lead to a disastrous end. The tale of his golden age, his incredible wealth, and the construction of God's holy temple is legendary. But his story has a dark second act, a slow poisoning of the soul that began with a series of political marriages. We will reveal the one compromise he made, a compromise of the heart that led to the building of pagan altars right outside Jerusalem. And the chilling, face-to-face judgment God delivered to him in his old age is a moment that sealed the fate of his kingdom forever. This is a story about the dangers of success and the slow fade of a brilliant mind. If you're ready to explore one of the most tragic and cautionary tales of the Bible, make sure you subscribe to our channel and activate the notifications, because you won't want to miss a single part of this saga of wisdom and ruin. Our story begins with the passing of a crown. King David, the warrior poet, was old and dying. After a brief but intense power struggle, his son Solomon, born of Bathsheba, was secured as the next king of Israel. On his deathbed, David gave his son a final charge: be strong. Act like a man, and observe what the Lord your God requires, so that you may prosper in all you do. Solomon's reign began with this sacred instruction, a promise of a golden age. Built on the foundation of his father's complex legacy, early in his reign, Solomon traveled to Gibeon to offer 1,000 burnt offerings to the Lord. That night, God appeared to him in a dream. "Ask for whatever you want me to give you," God said. It was a blank check from the creator of the universe. Solomon could have asked for long life, immense riches, or the death of his enemies. Instead, his response was one of profound humility. "Give your servant a discerning heart," he asked, "to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong." God was so pleased with this selfless request that he granted him not only unparalleled wisdom, but also the riches and honor he did not ask for. Soon after, this divine gift was put on public display. 2 women came before him, both claiming to be the mother of a single living baby. In a stroke of brilliant psychological insight, Solomon called for a sword and ordered the baby to be cut in 2, with half given to each woman. The true mother cried out for the baby's life to be spared, while the liar agreed to the horrific judgment. Solomon's wisdom was proven. His fame spread throughout the world. Solomon's reign became a golden age for Israel. The kingdom stretched from the Euphrates River to the border of Egypt. The Bible describes a time of incredible peace and prosperity, a time when Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They ate, they drank, and they were happy. Solomon's wealth was legendary. Silver was said to be as common in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar as plentiful as the sycamore fig trees. His intellectual prowess was just as immense. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. His fame reached the furthest corners of the known world, most famously attracting the Queen of Sheba. She traveled from her distant land with a great caravan of spices, gold, and precious stones to test him with hard questions. After she had seen his palace, tasted his food, and heard his wisdom, the Bible says there was no more spirit in her. She declared that the reality of his splendor and wisdom was far greater than any report she had heard. This was the peak. Solomon was the undisputed master of a perfect kingdom. The crowning achievement of Solomon's life was the construction of the temple in Jerusalem, the fulfillment of his father David's greatest dream. For 7 years, a massive workforce of tens of thousands of men labored to build a permanent house for the Lord. It was a structure of unparalleled magnificence. The stones were quarried and shaped off-site, so that no sound of a hammer or iron tool was heard at the construction site. The walls were lined with cedar from Lebanon, and the entire interior, the floors, the walls, the ceilings was overlaid with pure gold. When it was finished, Solomon gathered all of Israel for a dedication ceremony. As the priests brought the Ark of the Covenant into the most holy place, the glory of the Lord in the form of a cloud filled the temple so that the priests could not even stand to perform their service. Solomon was at the absolute zenith of his spiritual devotion, a king who had built a house for God on earth. Do you believe it's possible for someone to be at the peak of their spiritual devotion and still be vulnerable to a great fall? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because Solomon's greatest triumph is followed by his slowest, most tragic mistake. While the temple stood as a testament to his devotion, Solomon began to make a series of compromises in his personal and political life. To secure his kingdom and build alliances with surrounding nations, he began to marry foreign women. He married the daughter of Pharaoh, and women from the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. This was in direct violation of a clear command from God, who had warned the Israelites. You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods. But Solomon clung to them in love. His collection of wives and concubines grew to a staggering number: 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. The seeds of his own ruin were being planted in his own palace. A slow and seductive corruption that would ultimately undo everything he had built. The Bible gives us a heartbreaking summary of what happened next. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods. And his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. It was not a sudden apostasy, but a gradual erosion of his faith, a slow poisoning of his soul. His undivided heart was now a divided heart. He did not stop worshiping God, but he began to worship other gods as well, to appease his foreign wives. The Bible tells us that on a hill east of Jerusalem, in full view of the glorious temple he had built for the Lord, Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Molech, the detestable god of the Ammonites, a god to whom children were sacrificed. The wisest man in the world was now openly committing the most foolish and profane of acts. The divine gift of wisdom was given to Solomon to dispense justice and to govern his people with a discerning heart. But as his heart became divided, his wisdom became corrupted. The grand building projects, once a symbol of God's glory and Israel's prosperity, now served his own ego. To fund his extravagant lifestyle and the upkeep of his massive harem, he imposed heavy taxes and forced labor upon his own people. The man who had been celebrated for his justice was now an oppressor. He had sacrificed his integrity, his undivided devotion, and the well-being of his subjects for the sake of political alliances and personal pleasure. His great mind remained, but the character and moral compass to wield it for good had been lost. He had become a caricature of his former self, a king who knew everything but understood nothing of true value. The consequences of his divided heart were not long in coming. God, who had appeared to him in a dream to grant him wisdom, now appeared to him again. But this time, it was not with a blessing, but with a judgment. The Lord was angry because Solomon's heart had turned away. The sentence was severe and absolute. "Since this is your attitude and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees," God said, "I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates." This was the ultimate tragedy. The unified kingdom his father had fought to build, in which he had brought to its golden age, would be shattered because of his foolishness. God did offer one small mercy, a sliver of victory in the midst of the tragic verdict. For the sake of his father, David, God would not do it in Solomon's lifetime, but would tear it from the hand of his son. And he would not tear away the entire kingdom, leaving one tribe for his descendants. The final years of Solomon's reign were not a peaceful slide into old age. They were a foreshadowing of the chaos to come. The peace of his golden age was shattered as God began to raise up adversaries against him. There was Hadad the Edomite, an old enemy of Israel who returned to plague his kingdom. There was Rezon, who ruled in Damascus and was hostile to Israel throughout Solomon's reign. And most significantly, there was Jeroboam, one of Solomon's own officials, a man of great ability. The prophet Ahijah met Jeroboam and, in a dramatic act, tore a new cloak into 12 pieces, giving 10 to Jeroboam, prophesying that he would rule over 10 tribes of a divided Israel. The kingdom was already fracturing from within, a direct result of the judgment pronounced by God. The glorious reign of the wisest king was ending in conflict and rebellion. Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. Then he rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David, the city his father had built. His son, Rehoboam, succeeded him as king. But the kingdom he inherited was a fragile one, resentful of the heavy burdens his father had placed upon it. When the people asked for a lighter load, Rehoboam, in an act of supreme foolishness, threatened to make their burdens even heavier. The 10 northern tribes rebelled, and the kingdom was violently torn in two, just as God had prophesied. Solomon's legacy was sealed. He was the wisest man in history who had been given every gift from God: wisdom, wealth, power, and peace. But through a series of compromises born of worldly desire, he squandered it all. His story is the ultimate cautionary tale, a tragic reminder that even the greatest wisdom is useless without a heart fully devoted to the one who gives it. What do you believe was the true turning point in Solomon's downfall? Share your thoughts below. If this tragic story of wisdom and ruin captivated you, please subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the Bible's most complex figures. If you want to explore the story of Solomon's father and his own tragic fall from grace, you need to watch the video on your screen right now about King David.